She wasn't the type to fall for things. Ava, 26, UX designer. The kind of person who reads books about habits and actually finishes them. She tracks her screen time. She has a meditation streak. She considers herself digitally literate. She's read the articles. She knows how the algorithm works. She's explained it to other people at parties. One Tuesday, she opens TikTok to take a quick break. 40 minutes later, she snaps out of it. Not because she chose to stop, because her phone died. She goes back to her laptop, opens the design file she'd been working on, stares at it. Can't think, not tired. She just woke up 3 hours ago, not distracted by anything specific, just empty, like trying to remember a word that won't come back. She closes the file, opens Instagram. That feeling she described to her therapist later? That's not laziness. That's not a character flaw. That's a measurable neurological state with a name, a mechanism, and a very deliberate architect. And the wild part is, Ava did everything right. She just didn't know what game she was already inside. Now meet Noah. Noah, 31, took the opposite approach. 2 years ago, he deleted TikTok. Cold turkey. Problem identified, problem solved. He replaced it with YouTube, with podcasts, with long Reddit threads about personal finance and productivity. He reads newsletters. He's proud of this. What Noah doesn't realize, and this is the part that's going to bother you, is that he still has it. The same thing Ava has. The fog. The inability to get through 3 paragraphs before reaching for his phone. The quiet restlessness that arrives the moment nothing is happening. He didn't escape the mechanism, he just changed the delivery vehicle. 2 people, 2 strategies, same outcome. Neither of them knows why. That's what we're going to fix today. Let's start with what brain rot actually is. Not the meme, not the ironic TikTok self-diagnosis where someone posts a brainworms clip and calls themselves cooked. Oxford Dictionary named it the word of the year for 2024. Their definition is bleaker than the internet version, the supposed deterioration of a person's mental or intellectual state as a result of overconsumption of material considered to be trivial or unchallenging. Supposed. That word is doing a lot of heavy lifting, because the research says it's not supposed. The research says it's structural, measurable, in some cases visible on a brain scan. The term itself isn't even new. Henry David Thoreau used it in 1854 in Walden to describe what industrial society was doing to the mind. He compared intellectual stagnation to the potato rot that devastated Europe in the 1840s, a biological metaphor for mental decay. 170 years later, we didn't invent the concept, we just finally built the machine that proved him right. But before we get to the scan, and we will get there, we need to understand how the extraction actually works. Because there's more than one layer, and most people stop at the first. The visible layer is the one you already know. TikTok is engineered to be addictive, infinite scroll. The algorithm that predicts your mood better than your closest friend. Short videos designed to trigger quick dopamine hits before your brain can evaluate whether they were worth anything. You've heard this. You've nodded along. You've explained it to someone else. Here's the thing nobody tells you. Knowing how a trap works doesn't protect you from it. The mechanism operates below the level of conscious awareness. It doesn't matter that you can name the slot machine. The slot machine doesn't need your permission to run. The first hidden layer is what neuroscience calls the tonic-phasic dopamine system. And you need to understand this before anything else makes sense. Your brain runs a steady baseline of dopamine at all times. This is your tonic level. It's what gives you the motivation to start things, the energy to care, the low-grade drive that makes life feel worth participating in. Then there are phasic spikes, sharp bursts that fire when something novel, rewarding, or unexpected happens. A good joke, a text from someone you like, a plot twist. Short-form video doesn't give you 1 or 2 phasic spikes. It gives you phasic spikes every 15 to 20 seconds, continuously, for however long your session lasts. The brain does not like this. It wants balance, homeostasis. So it compensates. It downregulates. It reduces the number of active dopamine receptors because it assumes you're clearly swimming in stimulation and needs to adjust the volume. Then you put down your phone and try to read a book. The book feels like concrete, not because the book is bad, because your reward system has been temporarily recalibrated to a level of stimulation that a book, or a conversation, or a meal, or a quiet afternoon simply cannot match. Psychiatrist Anna Lemke calls this the dopamine deficit state. Your tonic baseline drops below its healthy level, and in that state, everything real feels flat, dull, not worth the effort. Reality didn't get boring. Your brain's threshold got raised. That's layer 1. Most people think that's the whole story. It isn't. The second hidden layer is called attention residue, and it might be the most underexplained concept in digital psychology. Researcher Sophie Leroy discovered something specific about how the brain handles task switching. When you move from one piece of content to the next, part of your attention doesn't follow. It stays behind, stuck on what you just saw, especially if it was emotionally charged or unresolved. Apply that to a TikTok session. The average user switches content every 1.7 to 35 seconds. In a 30-minute session, you can encounter 300 individual clips: a dog, a take on the Middle East, a skincare tutorial, someone crying about their dad, a comedy sketch, a recipe for pasta. Each one leaves a residue. By the time you put your phone down, your working memory is carrying hundreds of loose emotional threads, none of them resolved, all of them competing for processing bandwidth. Then you try to do something that requires sustained attention: a work document, a difficult conversation, a problem that takes more than a minute to solve. Here's the number. Frequent short video users sustain focus for an average of 47 seconds. Non-users manage 2.5 minutes. That's an 81% gap in attentional capacity. 47 seconds. That's not attention. That's a glance. The fog Ava felt after 40 minutes on her couch wasn't metaphor. It was the weight of 300 unresolved cognitive threads pressing on her working memory simultaneously. Her brain wasn't resting. It was buried. But the third layer is where this gets existential. It's called the default mode network. And it is, quietly, the most important thing the algorithm is taking from you. The DMN is the brain system that activates when you're not focused on anything external, when you're bored, when you're staring at the ceiling, when you're in the shower and not listening to anything. For a long time, scientists thought this was the brain doing nothing. They were wrong. The DMN is where memory consolidation happens, where self-reflection lives, where the brain processes the question, what do I actually want? What am I becoming? Does this life I'm building make any sense? It's also where creative insight is generated, the shower thought, the solution that arrives to a problem you stopped consciously working on, the sudden clarity. None of that is accidental. It's the output of a brain system that requires quiet in order to run. Here's what kills it: stimulation. Any stimulation. Every time you reach for your phone at the first hint of boredom, you preemptively shut down the DMN before it can do its work. Harvard psychologist Arthur C. Brooks calls this a doom loop of meaning. The algorithm offers you an escape from discomfort. You take it. And in taking it, you sacrifice the cognitive process that gives your life coherence. The hollowness that heavy users describe, the vague sensation that nothing means much, that ambition is hard to locate, that you used to care about things but can't remember how. That's not depression, at least not necessarily. That's atrophy. The DMN hasn't been asked to run in so long that it's weakened, like a muscle you've stopped using. Noah replaced TikTok with podcasts. He filled every silence with audio. The DMN never had a window. He did everything right and still paid the same cost, just on a different platform's terms. Now we go to the anatomy. Because the previous 3 layers are functional, this next one is physical. Brain imaging studies using fMRI have found structural differences in heavy short-form video users, not behavioral tendencies, structural changes. The orbitofrontal cortex, the region that evaluates reward and governs emotional regulation, shows increased gray matter volume in heavy users. That sounds positive. It's not. In this context, it means hypersensitivity to the reward signal of the next video. The urge to scroll becomes physiologically stronger than the conscious decision to stop. The dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, the executive control region, the part of your brain that says, okay, that's enough, shows disrupted functional synchronization in addicted users. The brakes degrade, not because you're weak, because the circuitry has been altered. White matter, the structural connective tissue of the brain, the infrastructure of impulse control, shows degraded integrity in heavy users. This is what makes the just use willpower advice so insufficient. You're not losing a discipline contest. The system physically reconfigures the hardware responsible for self-control. It makes stopping harder at the level of wiring. not character. And none of this was an accident. This is the room you were never supposed to see. In lawsuits unsealed by the Kentucky Attorney General, internal TikTok research documents came to light. What they contained changes the entire frame of this conversation. TikTok's own researchers identified that a user needs to watch 260 videos to reach the threshold associated with compulsive use patterns. 260 videos. At an average clip length of 20 to 30 seconds, a user can cross that threshold in a single 90-minute session. One afternoon, one Tuesday. The documents show the company knew this. They knew internally that compulsive usage correlates with the loss of analytical skills, memory formation, and empathy. They wrote it down, and then they launched screen time tools. Those tools, their own research showed, reduced daily usage by an average of 1.5 minutes, not hours, minutes, 1.5 minutes. They promoted these tools to the public, to governments, to regulators, as evidence of their commitment to user wellness. Meanwhile, the internal documents called the features effectively negligible. The trap was never an unfortunate side effect. The trap was the product. Ava isn't failing to control herself. Ava is a biological organism placed inside an environment that was specifically optimized, A/B tested, and refined to override her self-control. The same self-control the company publicly claims to protect. She's not the customer. She is the inventory. And the algorithm isn't passively waiting for you to fall in. It's actively mapping the moment you're most vulnerable. Every scroll speed, every pause, every millisecond you linger on a video before swiping, these feed into a real-time behavioral model. Sound analysis allows the platform to detect which audio patterns match your current emotional state. The feed adjusts to you while you're watching it. There's also something called active testing. The algorithm deliberately seeds your feed with content outside your established patterns, not to give you variety, to discover new edges of your behavior, new triggers it hasn't mapped yet. It's not showing you what you like. It's discovering what else it can use. The platform knew when Ava was taking a break from a frustrating project, not because she told it, because the session timing, the scroll speed, the pause patterns, all of it said so. And the feed adjusted to catch her in that exact state. You think you're browsing, you're being read. So what do you actually do with this? Because use it less isn't a strategy. Have more discipline isn't a strategy. Those treat this as a willpower problem. It isn't. It's a recalibration problem. The brain was moved from one set point to another. It can be moved back. Neuroplasticity works in both directions. The first thing to understand about recalibration, it does not work through substitution. You cannot replace TikTok with YouTube Shorts and call it a detox. You cannot replace one high-stimulation feed with another and expect a different neurological outcome. The receptor sensitivity doesn't care which app you're using. It only responds to the rhythm of the stimulation. What actually works is deliberately engineering windows of low-stimulation input. 30 minutes, no podcast, no music, no phone within reach. This feels profoundly uncomfortable at first. Specifically because that discomfort is the DMN trying to come back online. Don't suppress it. The itch is the signal that something important is restarting. Second, attention residue is defeated by completion, not abstinence. When you work, finish the task before switching. When you read, finish the chapter. The goal is training the brain to associate engagement with depth rather than speed. One completed thing instead of 30 fragmented things. Third, reintroduce slow rhythm on purpose. Physical books, walks without audio, meals without a screen open somewhere nearby. These feel boring initially. They feel boring in exactly the same way that unseasoned food tastes bland after a week of eating nothing but extremely aggressive flavors. The problem isn't the food, it's your palate, and palates recover. The timeline, according to the research, is not fast. The first 90 days, stabilization. Brain fog begins to lift. Sleep improves. The feeling of restlessness at the slightest pause starts to ease. 3 to 12 months. Decision-making begins to normalize. Impulse control strengthens. 12 months or more, tonic dopamine restored. Real life starts to feel genuinely engaging again. That's a long time, but it's proportional. The damage was slow and cumulative. The reversal follows the same logic. Ava still uses her phone. She still opens TikTok sometimes, but she started doing something different. When she closes the app, she waits 10 minutes before opening anything else, not because a productivity article told her to, because she now understands what's happening in those 10 minutes. The residue is clearing. The DMN is coming back online. The system is getting a window to reset. She told her therapist it still feels weird. The quiet. Like I'm supposed to be doing something, she said. That feeling, the compulsion to fill the silence, that's not her. That's the algorithm. Not in her phone anymore. In her head. Trained into her by 260 videos and an internal research document a company spent years hoping she'd never read. You had a question at the start of this. Whether brain rot is real, whether it's actually happening to you, whether knowing how the system works is enough protection. You have better data now. Knowing how the trap works doesn't protect you. Understanding the trap's architecture well enough to stop giving it raw material, that's something different. The brain isn't broken. It's been recalibrated by something with vastly more resources, vastly more data, and a vastly longer time horizon than you had when you first opened the app. Recalibrating it back is slower, less immediately interesting. It requires tolerating silence that the algorithm trained you to feel as failure. But the silence isn't failure. The silence is the default mode network asking the questions your feed has been answering for you. Let it ask.